One of the finest and most memorable motorcycles ever created.
Talking about the ZRX, you want to know some stories? I got some stories about the ZRX.
It's very comfortable. It's very reminiscent of the old school, and it gets down with the newer stuff.
Ride, I could put anybody on it and they can go fast. It's just a simple bike to ride.
It was back to basics for Kawasaki in the late 90s with this seriously powerful, street-friendly homage to Eddie Lawson. It was named by Cycle World as the best used bike of 2010. We're also going to take a look at how Rickey Gadson and Muzzy pushed it to new heights.
It was just fun to ride, and we got a lot of attention.
Especially when they put this fearsome machine into the 7-second zone.
You know, I had one of those that I rode for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and it was one of my favorite bikes.
Still loved by many.
I became initially interested in the model because of its similarity to the KZ of old.
It's the old school look with a little modern day twist of its time, and you know, it went very well with the market. So
it had retro bike enthusiasts storming into dealerships in the United States in 1999 for the 1100 and later for the more powerful ZRX 1200, a truly speedy and nimble, clever motorcycle.
It'll run a 1006 and a quarter and 711, 710, 79s in the 8th all day, just the way it sits with a strap, nothing else.
And cruise the street
and then ride it home. Dual purpose.
I have the ZRX 1200 motor in my ZRX 11.
A motor based off a ZX11, water-cooled with an aluminum frame and wind tunnel aerodynamics, the ZRX still has a passionate and loyal following from coast to coast. And you may be stunned at how affordably you can still purchase one.
It's a very versatile bike. You can drag race them. They're still good in curvy roads. They're comfortable for touring. I know several guys that have well over 100,000 miles on stock motors.
In a sea of Suzuki Hayabusas at the drag strip, the Kawasaki ZRX continues to stand out and stand apart. In the spirit of fairness, we'll also explore some incidents where things don't go according to plan and disaster ensues.
Well, it was a great day for the ZRX minus the broken chain. What happened?
Not sure. Something loosened up.
John had just destroyed the first and only ZRX in the country. Whew! We saw a skid mark in the road. We turned around and it on a steep curve, which I knew exactly what curve, if something happened, I knew exactly what curve it was going to be.
Like with all motorcycles, mistakes happen. Well, there weren't many mistakes made for Gadson and Muzzy, who have a legacy they can be proud of with the ZRX.
Did we embarrass ourselves? Nah, we didn't embarrass ourselves because it was the only one. No one knew what to expect, neither did we.
Enough power to make it fun.
2 key words, power and fun. Come with us as we power through the story of the ZRX. Motorcycle fanatics, cycle drag universe, thank you for stopping back once again. We've got an interesting topic today. You're going to want to stay with us all throughout this video. The ZRX, an iconic classic motorcycle by Kawasaki that will never be forgotten. It's constantly referred to as one of the best used bikes you can buy, one of the best bang for your buck bikes, and we're going to explain why. It's near and dear to my heart. My father owns one, he loves it, and he fits right into that demographic that snatched these things up. Reminded them so much of the classic KZs, the Z1Rs. This one was a retro muscle bike with all the new technology, and it was fast. Also in this video, we're gonna hear about how Rickey Gadson and Muzzy took one and went pro street drag racing, got into the 7s. We're gonna hear from both of those legends. And at the end of this video, Rickey Gadson's also gonna tell us a story about how he got to experience ZRX #1, the very first one ever made. We're gonna talk about the 1100, we're gonna talk about the 1200, we're gonna see some owners, we're gonna meet them, we're gonna see these bikes in action. At the end of this video, we're also gonna see some ZRX racing gone wrong. Stay with us. And we began in beautiful Crossville, Tennessee. You're taking a look at Crossville Dragway, where we found the ZRX being raced more than 20 years after it first came out.
Kawasaki fans, you will recognize that livery It is the Kawasaki ZRX. This is a beautiful drag bike. What is your name, sir?
Jim Smart.
And where are you from?
Cartersville, Georgia. It's a pretty good, consistent bracket killer. If the rider can compete.
And compete he does with a bunch of super fast sport bikes. Let's take a look back at the genesis of the Kawasaki ZRX 1100. The bike was created by Kawasaki in 1997. It was not available in the United States until 1999. It came with about 100 horsepower. It boasted a top speed of 143 miles an hour and was known for comfort.
What type of ETs you run?
It's gone a best of 633 in the 8th.
Okay, tell me about the performance upgrades that we have.
Basically nothing but a jet kit and a sidewinder header. The motor's just a bone stock junkyard motor in it currently.
A junkyard motor, tell me the story there.
I got a core motor traded in on a motor I built for somebody else, and it was actually seized up when I got it. I freed it up and started it, got it running. It smoked like a freight train. I got it good and hot. Let it sit overnight, started the next day, and it's never smoked since, and seems to run a little bit quicker every time I bring it out.
How long have you owned the motorcycle?
This particular one, probably 10 years. I've got a garage full of ZRXs. First one I bought in 03.
And we can see why he loves it. Simplicity, power, and comfort, all rolled into one.
I read in Cycle World that this bike is remembered as one of the best bang for your buck motorcycles out there. They're so affordable. You can pick them up used for an incredible deal, and they're really a lot of fun, aren't they?
It's a very versatile bike. You can drag race them. They're still good in curvy roads. They're comfortable for touring. I know several guys that have well over 100,000 miles on stock motors.
Now, we don't see too many on the drag strip, but from the guys that do race them, they say that they're a lot of fun. What's it like out there on the racetrack?
This particular bike is probably one of the smoothest riding drag bikes you'll ever ride. I can put anybody on it and they can go fast. It's just a simple bike to ride.
It's a popular sentiment that the legend Rob Muzzy fully agrees with.
You know, I had one of those that I rode for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And it was one of my favorite bikes. You know, it's got a upright, comfortable riding position. The handling and braking is excellent for that type of motorcycle. And I think it's just a great all-around bike.
Great on the street, and as Rob also knows, proven on the racetrack.
Of course, we raced one of those, which was a whole nother thing. And
a project led by a top Kawasaki executive.
John Hoover had the brainstorm that we would turn a ZRX into a race bike. So he called Rob Muzzy up and asked Rob Muzzy what he thought our chances was of building a pro street ZRX. And of course, Rob Muzzy and his wizardry, he built a pro street nitrous ZRX.
Enough power to make it fun.
I told you to remember those 2 words, power and fun. It epitomized the spirit of this race bike.
And won a championship with one in the Pro Star Series.
This was 2000, so directly after we came back. So in 2000, we ran the ZRX in Pro Street. And we struggled and struggled and struggled as a nitrous bike because there was no race. Remember, this is a one-off bike. There was no race parts available at the time. So Rob Muzzy developed everything for that motorcycle, down to the shocks and everything. Awesome piece. The way he looked, the bike was killer. It caught so much attention in the Pro Street class. But did we kick ass? Nah. Did we embarrass ourselves? Nah, we didn't embarrass ourselves because it was the only one. No one knew what to expect, neither did we. And then we ended up going in nitrous configuration. I think we ended up going like a 813 at Rockingham one year, which it blown us away. I think that was the same time that Brock broke into the sevens. I think it was the same weekend Brock was the first pro street bike to street bike shootout at the time, street bike shootout, that broke into the sevens. And I think we went 819, I think it was, or 813. Either way, that was that. So the following year, Rob Muzzy, matter of fact, in the middle of the year, Rob Muzzy shows up at the racetrack with a turbocharger on it and says, now try that. And we did. Of course, we went through a lot of teething pains with the turbo, but we ended up going in the sevens with the turbo. The following year, right as we brought out the ZRX12 Pro Street. So when we brought out the ZRX12 Pro Street, as we were developing it, we were still running my 750 turbo in the Superbike class and the ZRX in the Pro Street class, in the Street Bike Shootout class. Eventually we would go 786 in testing, not at a race. And then Ryan Schnitt started riding that bike as I jumped on the ZX12 turbo.
An era of motorcycle drag racing that will never be forgotten, much like the ZRX.
One of my fondest memories was when we did a breakfast for the ZRX Owners Club in Daytona Beach. We all met at a restaurant down by the coast, had a great meeting and breakfast, met a lot of owners, heard all their great stories about the bike. Then we all rode out to the track for the Daytona 200. It was a great time.
More than 20 years later, and owners are still having a blast riding and racing.
Being that there's not too many of them out there, is it tough to get parts?
Not when you're a hoarder.
So you've got that covered.
Yeah, we've got a good supply of parts at the house. I've got some big motors, I've got some turbo motors, just a little bit of everything.
How would you compare the ZRX to other motorcycles that you've drag raced?
This is actually the first drag bike I've ever owned. I drag raced cars before this.
Okay.
And took this, not this particular one, another one when it was still completely stocked to the drag strip one day to actually Man Cup when it was in Bradenton, and I was hooked. I had to have one to go drag racing with. What's
the most difficult part of trying to turn a wind light on with this thing?
For me, clutch. You got to be consistent on that clutch. It's tough.
It sure is.
And your head's got to be in the game.
A lot of fun to race and a lot of fun to reminisce.
Matter of fact, my greatest memory of the ZRX is when I used to go to South Africa. I set the world record in South Africa with the ZX12 nitrous. And we decided to take the USA Kawasaki team, which was the Highlands Kawasaki team led by Jeff Peck, Brian, Gilbert Coronado, and Troy. All of us, we went over to South Africa representing the United States. We took 2 ZRX turbos over there, one that they built, that Highlands team built, and then the Muzzy bike that Highlands team bought after we came out with the ZX12. And then we took some ZX12s, and a ZX11 turbo over there. So we had some artillery. We went over to the racetrack, and the whole Highlands team, I think Gilbert rode the ZRX, one of the ZRXs. I rode the other ZRX. Troy rode the ZX12. Brian rode the ZX11 turbo. And anyway, I went over there and kicked ass with the ZRX, won the race, set the track record. With the I set the track record with the ZX12. I did with the ZX12 turbo that they built over in South Africa. But anyway, we had a great race, great team showing.
When it comes to just about any vehicle, we know right now the retro party is in full swing. Kawasaki was ahead of its time. Let's go back to the late 90s. Remember, it was bikes like the Ram Air GSXR 750 that were all the rage. It was back to basics for the ZRX, and this appealed to a much different demographic. This appealed to folks who craved the comfort on the street.
Rode it on the street for 6 or 7 years. Super reliable. You know, tires, chain adjustment, change the oil, hit the button and go.
Now it's got some street strip goodies.
Trax arm on it, which really made a difference as far as getting this thing off the line. The Shinko tire on the back as well. Great aid there. As far as the motor, there's really nothing done internally. It's got a Muzzy pipe. It's got the carb kit. And I've been 1030 on the bike. We're air shifting it with on a shift light, nothing fancy. And it's more typically going to run 1050s up here at my local track, but just reliable in every environment and a value that's unsurpassed. It's just really been a great motorcycle for me.
Legions of owners agree and look back at the Kawasaki ZRX 1100 as an exquisite motorcycle there was just one problem that was starting to surface, and that was the Suzuki Bandit was flying and outperforming the ZRX in many cases. Well, Kawasaki had an answer. In 2002, 112 cc's were added, a wider riding gear, a redesigned swing arm, various details to the drivetrain, and it resulted in the 2002 Kawasaki ZRX 1200 that came in with a whopping 113 horsepower.
It is all about the ZRXs. What is your name, sir?
Eric Connor,
From?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Beautiful motorcycle. Tell me about it.
Thank you. This bike I spotted several years ago from a fellow rider. It gave me the desire to want one of these. I actually rode it. He allowed me to ride it. I went and bought my very own 2002. Years went by. He took very good care of the bike. Many miles at the drag strip. It's been across country several times. It's bone stock. He ended up wanting to sell the bike, so I bought it from him and continued its life cycle as it started. So we're at the track with 53,000 miles on it.
Wait a minute, how many miles is that?
53,000.
Hold on, I gotta take a look at it. We're gonna show people the proof is in the odometer.
That's a lot of street miles, and many of them with a passenger.
53,000 miles. This bike certainly has been cross country and back.
Yep, it's never had the cams out. There's never been anything done to it internally. Just a clutch replacement, oil change, just your typical maintenance.
And you drag race it as well.
Drag race it. It's seen track time, travel time, touring time, hooliganism time. It's seen it all.
Tremendous versatility and a whole lot of value for a rider who wants to try it all.
These things are bulletproof, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Kawasaki did a great job. I can see why Cycle World said this was one of the best bang for your buck bikes.
And if you look hard enough online, you will be astounded at what you can buy one for.
Can you believe how cheap they are right now? You can pick one up used for pretty much nothing.
Yep, I've seen them all across the board, but average you can buy them for about $3,500.
That's amazing.
And
what a versatile motorcycle.
Yep.
How do you like the upward seating position here as opposed to the Hayabusa or ZX14 position?
It tends to lend a little more comfort to you. Even at the track, they're just built, they're designed to do so many different things.
And as evidenced by that wheelie, these things were torque monsters. A lot of comfort and a whole lot of power and fun.
So it's very comfortable. It's very reminiscent of the old school, and it gets down with the newer stuff too.
Reminiscent indeed. It had us thinking about our own 1977 KZ1000 in comparison to this ZRX 1200, which has that unique look, but it comes with so much more modern technology. KZ riders will hear me when I say those bikes didn't stop great without breaking upgrades. We know that the ZRX will stop on a dime.
I became initially interested in the model because of its similarity to the KZ of old.
I know they sold a lot of these to former Z1 and KZ owners when they first came out because everybody just loved the throwback look.
Yes, absolutely. It's the old school look with a little modern day twist of its time, and you know, it went very well with the market. So there's tons of them out there, tons of fun.
If you get one, get ready for some wheelies. We can promise you that.
And you know, it's my bike of choice out of the garage for drag race or touring around town. It's a great bike. They've done a great job.
It sparked up nostalgia, much like the Z900 RS did recently, but many ZRX owners will tell you this is the better all-around bike.
Take it out on Friday night. Go get some groceries. You got the luggage rack on it here. You can load up all your groceries. Put a gallon of milk under the seat.
And you gotta love the primitive tricks.
To the tack. You seen this?
Uh-uh.
So what the old school trick was, you just tape off your tack, leave you a window for your launch RPM. This is as high tech as it gets. You leave with the needle in the window and you shift when it reappears. Real simple, basic, old school drag racing.
It's the most affordable shift light I've ever seen.
Absolutely. Goes miles and miles, fail safe, solar power.
A leading motorcycle right out of the gate. And wait till you hear hear this story Gadson has about the first ZRX ever created.
What a lot of you don't know, and it's really good seeing Rob Muzzy on here talking about his memories of the ZRX, but I go back to the ZRX from when I flew to California to have a meeting with the director of the motorcycle division back then, who was John Hoover. God bless him, rest his soul. John Hoover invited me to California to ride up to Laguna Seca. Now, here's a kid from New Jersey that I ride, but I don't ride. So from Irvine to Laguna Seca to Monterey Beach is, he said, well, we're going to take 3 days. It's going to take us 3 days to get there. Not because it's that far, that it's 3 days worth of riding far, but because we were going to go up with the new ZRX, the new Kawasaki ZX9, 2 ZX9s. Me and Mark Homchek, we would ride the ZX9s, and John would ride the first and only. So when I flew to California, I got to see the world's only Kawasaki ZRX. John Hoover, who was the director of the motorcycle division, he was very influential when it came to certain motorcycles, and the ZRX was one of them. He actually designed the ZRX from the Eddie Lawson model. So when I saw it for the first time in Irvine, he told me to go out and go ride it. So I went out and rode the bike, and wow, was I impressed. The ZRX was real nimble for what it was. It was fast. It had a lot of torque. It was a ZRX 1100, and this was back in 1999, I believe it was, because it was the year before the ZRX actually came out. Matter of fact, there was none in the country. This was a pre-production prototype that John had designed himself. They built it, and John was going to ride it to get an impression on how it rides, and basically he just taking it for his first ride. So I rode it around in Irvine, and was blown away at how nimble it was, how quick it was, and fast. So we got on the highway. So when he told me it was going to take us a couple days to get there, because we was going to take all back roads, no highways. So if anybody knows in Southern California that if we take A1A, that's all along the coast, and then we took all mountain roads, God, that was the greatest ride. Even to the day, that was the greatest ride ever. We started out at 5 o'clock in the morning from John Hoover's house. Me, Mark Homchek, who I believe was director of sales at the time, not sure, and the director of the motorcycle division, which was John Hoover. We started out in Irvine at his house early in the morning. And of course, I'm not prepared for the weather, so it was nice. You know, I'm thinking it's going to be warm the whole way. They say, no, we riding in riding suits and earplugs. First time ever I had wore earplugs. They wear earplugs because all the wind buffering noise, they say, affects your hearing. So we got on the road, and we would ride for 4 or 5 hours, stop in the mountains at a restaurant in the mountains and eat lunch. And then we would get back on the road and ride to about 4 or 5 o'clock, and then stop at a bed and breakfast or a hotel, spend the night, start out at 5 o'clock in the morning again, and ride all back roads all the way up to Monterey. Now, the interesting part was, remember, this is the only ZRX in captivity at the time. John, me and Mark Homchek started little competition stuff on these twisty roads. And all of a sudden we lost John. And when we went back to see where John was, whew, we saw a skid mark in the road. We turned around, and on a steep curve, which I knew exactly what curve, if something happened, I knew exactly what curve it was going to be. So when we returned around and went back down the hill, we saw this long black skid mark that went straight when the curve turned. And then when we got to the other side of it, we saw John Hoover on the ground evaluating the damage that had just been done to the world's only ZRX at the time. So of course, I'm making sure John's okay. He was all right. We got back. He continued to ride it. We pieced it together, rode it all the way to Laguna Seca, and he put the bike up because he didn't want nobody to see it. And we went down to Bubba Gump Shrimp down in Monterey Beach, me and John by the water. And we met up with Doug Myers, and we had a good time. The rest of the weekend was great. So That was my first experience with the ZRX. Wasn't pleasantful because John had just destroyed the first and only ZRX in the country. So, but it was his bike, and he was the head guy at Kawasaki, so it wasn't as big a deal as if I would have trashed it.
Speaking of motorcycles getting trashed, check this out. This is an unfortunate situation that I certainly will never forget. That was me in the left lane on my Suzuki Hayabusa. I was out in front, so fortunately I was able to avoid this disaster. What happened is the oil pan cracked. The rider Mark was unable to get out of the throttle or clutch it. He slipped in his own oil, crossed the center line, went down hard, and ended up breaking his collarbone. The good news is he made a full recovery, and he is back at the track. Here's another unfortunate incident we spotted in Crossville.
Well, it was a great day for the ZRX minus the broken chain. What happened?
Not sure. Something loosened up and the chain jumped off and didn't go anywhere.
Sorry to hear about that.
Well, that's part of racing.
No damage other than the chain?
No, it doesn't appear to be.
Good.
We should be in good shape for the next race.
Sometimes they can wrap around the countershaft sprocket and be nasty.
Hey, that's racing. That incident, not quite so serious. It was time for us to head to Nashville Airport and get out of there, but we had plenty of memories to think about when it came to the ZRX. I hope this video brought back some memories for you. We want to thank the living legend, Rob Muzzy, for his contributions. How awesome was that? So cool to relive this bike. We also want to thank Rickey Gadson. Thanks, Rick.
You asked, and you shall receive. All right, so anyway, it's Rickey Gadson reporting for Cycle Drag magazine. Cycle Drag is not a magazine, Jack. It's his internet. Cycle Drag online. And Rickey Gadson, see ya.
The 1982 KZ1000R of Eddie Lawson lives on, and so does the ZRX. This bike was so iconic and popular, maybe we need a retro of a retro, all about the tribute bikes. Well, I certainly hope you enjoyed this video. Remember, you can pick one up cheaper than you think. If you have any questions or stories, leave them in the comments. Please share your thoughts on the unbelievable, remarkable, memorable Kawasaki ZRX. Thank you, everybody, for subscribing to Cycle Drag on YouTube. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the comments, and thank you for also liking CycleDrag.com on Facebook. Share with your friends. If you keep it growing, we're going to keep bringing you awesome stuff like this. Thanks a lot.
Hey guys, this is WWE superstar Zack Ryder, and when I'm not winning championships or collecting action figures, I'm on YouTube watching Cycle Drag and going to CycleDrag.com. And also when you're on YouTube, go to the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast. All right, Cycle Drag on YouTube, CycleDrag.com.
Yo, what's up, guys? Gabe Tuft here, founder of Body Spartan Racing. We're about to pack up and head out to MSR Houston. Just want to give a huge shout out to Cycle Drag and Jack Corpella. The site's awesome. What they do is awesome. Jack is awesome. Go check him out.
Wait a minute. Is it the legendary Jesse James? Are you really the legendary Jesse James?
Sometimes, only in my own mind.
What do you got on your hat?
Cycle Drag.
You're the man. Do you watch the Cycle Drag YouTube channel?
No, but you should.
We hope that you'll start watching, and I appreciate it.
Yep.
I wonder if even Jesse James approves of the Kawasaki ZRX. Boy, I'd love to get his reaction to a ride on this iconic bike. Don't forget that crash incident. We have a full-length video up on the Cycle Drag YouTube channel. If you want to check that one out, please make sure you are subscribed. Please make sure you like CycleDrag.com on Facebook. Share with some friends, and you know if there's anything fast motorcycles involved, especially classic retro bikes, we're in. Cycle Drag rolls on.